don't make them hard.
Just right there about Martin Wilson, because we had reached that earlier with his thought. He was so dismissive of our sovereignty. You know, he said that England were backward, and he said we should be part of a bigger union, obviously, that is the EU. But I thought he was so different about it.
Absolutely. So I suppose there's three major issues I would have exactly right is sovereignty, or neutrality, and freedom of speech. So I think what they don't get, it's funny, that it's like the education system in general in the last week. You know the way Michael said we used to laugh at things, you know, and now it turns out they're already here. And the other, I just had a few books actually that if you can listen to. There's an interview with John Taylor Gatto online. It's about 2 hours, and he won an award in America for being the Teacher of the Year. And what he realized is that the education system wasn't helping young people, and he was in the Bronx where half of them would never go to college. And so he just set up a system to say if you're 14, he let them go 1 day a week to do what they loved. And they actually changed the world. So they got parks made, and they introduced water standards at 14 in the swimming pool. And he realized that the education system that was set up in America is for, if you go to university, you do have the opportunity to do lots of different things. But if the education system for people who don't go to university, it was undermining their individuality and also taking out their love of country and their value, and supporting the nurture that people automatically have for the country that they live in. So it is actually quite easy, and in his book he mentions how you know whether an education system has gone downhill and how you can change it. And my daughter is in junior cert, and after her year, you know what the grades are? They're not like A, B, C, D anymore for subjects. They are meeting expectations, below expectations, right? This is going to be this is coming on the junior cert, right? Meeting expectations, above expectation, below expectation. But of course, whose expectation? So it means that if you can't read and you gave 3 or 4 sentences, there's no standard. You're just meeting expectation. So what I think why it's not going to work, this sovereignty thing, is that it goes against common sense and it goes against human nature. Because what people want to do is provide for their family. They don't just want to sit at home and watch TV. But if you have an education system that indoctrinates them for like 8 hours a day about victimhood and whatever, that you shouldn't provide and there's something wrong with hard work, then that's not going to work. So I think one of the things is that if you call out the education system, so I think above expectation, if I was saying that has to be gone, right? That's not what you want. Above expectation, meeting expectation, I mean, how do you know was that good or not? So I think the value of sovereignty, it's been undermined, right? So the reason why all of the people we say in the door get away with that is because if anyone stands up to say, you know what, I'm proud of my country, I love my country, then you're a racist or a bigot. And so why I'm here today, because I'm not on social media, is, let them try, right? Whatever they say, exactly as George Hook said, that it isn't. We just have to come back and say, why are you saying that? That doesn't make any sense. And so why you're here today is enough of us have to get the courage and which includes me, I mean, I'm not, media savvy or whatever, is just to learn how we can challenge them and change the dialogue so that for the next generation, because I think we've kind of lost 15 years, the people, like when I've met young people traveling around Europe in the last few weeks and in Ireland, and they say things back like, oh, people, they didn't know what they were voting for, right, in Brexit. And you say, well, that's democracy, that's the vote. And they think it's wrong. Right? So they actually think it's wrong that Trump got elected, and it's entirely wrong, and they don't get it. So I think what we have to do is kind of plan from our 2020, 2030, 2040, where we take back control of our lives, and we value, it's okay to love our country, it's okay to value sovereignty, and we try and get our neutrality back. And if, because of that, we decide, okay, we're better to leave the EU, that's one way of getting control. But we need to get societal control back as well in our public domains, freedom of speech, education, and parents need to stand up if some rubbish has been taught in their schools. You know, you need to have, like, you could have a day where people just don't send their kids to school. I was thinking you could have a day where people in Ireland didn't use their credit card. Right? You know what I mean? We need to...
Very good.
Okay.
I think it's just an observation, really. I would never consider myself an economist in any manner of means.
I'm not either.
No, probably not even financially, sadly. But my doctorate would have been in English literature, specifically Holocaust literature. But I was very impressed with what you said about Liverpool project, because I was actually quoted in a newspaper where I brought that subject up. And it beggars belief. It seems almost like unbelievable that people can't learn from that.
Absolutely.
Because they started off, as you said, they gave people the option: you have this house for 5 years, you do the house up, you do it to a living standard, you prove that the house is not for sale, not for rent, not for lease. And if the house meets your requirements and is proven to be a family home, you get that house at the end of 5 years for one sterling.
That's it.
Same thing. And now then it was so successful, they redid it, and then they started to bring it in for businesses.
Absolutely.
And it just beggars belief that something like that is not taken up.
Yeah.
You know,
So I think what we'd like to do is to say, you know, you give, we all give, thank you for that, you know, we give power to the government by waiting, wondering, you know, while our communities, local, small communities are destroyed. So what we need to do is say, you know, if you could do something that costs nothing, or set up a small bank, or one or two, then we just move our business to that bank. And if one community in Ireland said, we're going to try it in one little village where we have 20 empty houses, then maybe people could volunteer also to help those families and show that it works. So I think what we can do and won't work is wait for them to change. So we have to have an intermediate strategy that we could come with very practical policies as Irish people helping ourselves, not relying on the government, but just even in our expertise, or just trying to have one or two model villages where it would work, and then show that it is more cost efficient, and then move our businesses. I mean, can you imagine if you had, like the way Avonmore was set up 20 years ago, where farmers actually took control. Now, I know that has gone on to be powerful, but I keep thinking, why don't farmers do the same thing themselves, you know, and direct to, you know, another 20 years on, you could do the same thing, or the farming community, the way it was, they had, what was the bank, the agricultural bank? ACC, yeah, which helped me get to college, right? They gave small loans to farmers. So that it's not impossible, that you couldn't just have a community of people, or we could come together and say, let's have a radio station. I'm not saying it's not up to us to do it, but I suppose we've seen how disastrous, I think the country has really gone downhill in the last 12 years. I mean, it's shocking. So I suppose it turns out that if they had any patriotism at all, they could have thrown small bits of breadcrumbs to Ireland, but they haven't done. So really, I think they've lost credibility and they really don't care. So I think it's up to us. We're not going to get elected probably in the next 5 or 10 years, Herman, well, maybe we will. I hope we do, but we're not going to change things. But if we had an intermediate strategy with a lot of these policy experts, we could have a plan for what would happen in parallel to getting into power, and then you take away a lot of the power from them.
Okay, can we just take one or two more brief questions? I know that everybody likes to make a statement and say something, but just a pointed question, and then we'll move on to the next stage of the event.
We're nearly done.
So there was actually a gentleman way down at the back there, and his hand up first.
No, it's great to hear about the high caliber candidates. My question is, how are you going to engage? I mean, if you're going to get, let's say, an RTE, we heard George Hook saying, you're going to get blown out of the water.
I'm meeting someone tomorrow about starting a radio station.
Very good.
Okay.
Not for me, obviously, for other. I mean, I would think of funding it, or you know, to help setting it up, and then get real people, maybe like George Hook or John Waters, or you know.
The gentleman in the white shirt at the back.
Yes.
Brief question.
Yeah, I think it is very important going up to the European elections that all the other small parties that renew farmer Sinn Féin, either they come back I mean, we have similarities.
Absolutely.
In those small parties.
Yeah, and we know direct democracy, we're very friendly, and I would personally be very supportive of Jim O'Doherty and Anti-Corruption Ireland